Hi, everybody. It's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming at you to talk about the events of July 2025. Okay, and thanks, as always, to the guys at the Know Thyself podcast. Appreciate you recommending me to so many people. I just mowed the lawn, so I tried to doll myself up as best I could, so it might look a little messy. My Libra moon and rising are concerned about this. Okay, so not to mention my son in the fifth house, if you guys know what that means. So let's talk about exciting stuff this month. The biggest one is that Uranus is going into Gemini. And all the outer planets change signs. Excuse me, I have sneezing from mowing the lawn. All the outer planets change signs very slowly. Uranus changes signs once every 7 years. Neptune every 14 years, and Pluto, depending on what it's doing, can be 15 to 30 years. But we've had Pluto change signs, like fully go into Aquarius in November. Neptune went into Aries a few months ago. It's going to pull back into Pisces and then go back into Aries fully in February. So that's a big deal. Now we have Uranus changing signs and going into Gemini, which it'll pull back into Taurus, and like at Halloween, go back into Gemini fully in April. And then to add more to that, Saturn, which changes signs every 2.5 years, not as big of a deal. Saturn went into Aries in May. It pulls back into Pisces for a little bit, but goes back into Aries in February. So that's just more of a minor thing. But to have all three of the outer planets changing signs at the same time is pretty cool, and especially because it'll make Pluto and Uranus trine, because 2 air signs, and then the Neptune in fire sextiling 60-degree angle to both the Uranus and the Pluto, and then when we get the Saturn in there also sextiling the Uranus Pluto, it's really good for the planet and for future thinking on the planet. But let's just say that Uranus even though the planets are going to go backwards, because all the planets, retrograde, and we'll talk about Mercury retrograde later this month, but with the outer planets, they often will retrograde back into the previous sign because they're not moving so fast, So that's normal, but it does infuse with a lot of excitement. So, and just to be, I'll say historical, that the U.S. has Uranus in Gemini. It has Neptune in Aries. It also has Jupiter in Cancer, as well as Sun sign in Cancer. And Jupiter just went into Cancer for a whole year, does that once every 12 years. During the beginning of the United States, a lot of exciting things going on in creating the Constitution and early things going on. Pluto had just gone into Aquarius. So at this interesting time that you don't think about with people having a Neptune return because it's 200 years. I mean, most people have a Uranus return at 84 years old or so, but nobody's having a Pluto return at 250 something years, So it's exciting to see what's going on with the United States as a person, or as the chart of this entity, to have all these outer planets returning and making this harmonious, believe it or not, set of angles that we might not see the benefits of for a little while, but maybe next year. But I mean, everything's shifting. And just to say that Uranus going into to the Gemini is, even on an individual level, because this is when you talk about these outer planets changing signs, it's more of a mass consciousness kind of shift. But Uranus going into Gemini, it's very curious, and nothing against the sign of Taurus, but Taurus is about, I am who I am, and that's how it is, and, it's more of a steady Eddie sign, and we need steady Eddie, especially Aries is like, woo, new stuff, and then Taurus is like, okay, fulfill this excitement of new stuff, don't just start it and drop it. That's where Taurus will sustain something. But then it's sustaining and maybe being stubborn, and then Gemini comes and is like, where can we create flexibility among what Uranus is about? And Uranus is about ideas, and ideas of, literally Uranus represents democracy. It represents freedom of thought. It represents multiculturalism, and how we're all one big mosaic. And in a lot of ways, Jupiter is that as well. Um, and for Jupiter to be in Cancer, it's one of like the quote unquote best places for Jupiter to be. And because Jupiter is kind of more heart centered about everybody, and especially when it's in the sign of Cancer, it's very like family like, or you're like a heart chakra opening. Whereas Uranus, which is a planet representing Aquarius, is very mental, and then Gemini is really breakthrough mental ideas. So it's like a like a brain chakra kind of energy. I don't know if that would be crown chakra or not, maybe not so much, but just, like your brain is like, wow, like this is how it could all go together. And so there's something about Uranus going to Gemini, which is about how everyone could get along, or there's space for everyone, or enough for everyone, especially that Jupiter in Cancer is enough food for everyone, enough safety for everyone, enough financial security for everyone. And so, the Uranus in Gemini is pretty interesting because the last time it was there, scary enough, World War II, but the aftermath of World War II brought a lot more connection between countries and shared experiences and cultural exchange and stuff. So, and kind of more like, oh, wow, we're all on this earth together, So, not like we're in a world war, but just the idea of like, we're all in this together. And when you're doing that in your like personal spiritual life, it can be creating connections within yourself. Of course, with people in your life, you can find out you have more commonalities, or the differences make things cool. Like I think about, Uranus is like again, like a mosaic. Like if you get close, it's all different things put up next to each other. But when you pull back, it's all like makes this beautiful picture. Or sometimes I use the example of like a watermelon feta salad with like mint leaves, and you're just like, who would do that? And then you eat it, and you're like, whoa, that's awesome, And Uranus is like this mishmash that goes, cool, like things are better when we all kind of smush up against each other and exchange ideas and go, wow, you're interesting. I'm more cool because I know you, and you made me, expand my mind. So there's something also personally in your spiritual growth about Uranus moving into Gemini and connecting with maybe forgotten parts of yourself, or the idea I want to just join in is Neptune going into Aries, which Neptune can be parts of yourself that are sort of misty, shadowy, not like dark shadow, it's more like a Pluto thing, but just sort of like veiled. And Aries is like, oh, what's over there? Or it's curiosity. I think that's what's cool about both Aquarius, well, all three, Aquarius, Gemini, and Aries, are all very curious. And so even in your personal growth about bad parts of yourself or crappy parts of your life or something can be seen in again, this mosaic. Or when I was getting to the idea of Neptune, like forgiving that these experiences happened, or seeing how these sharp edges could blend in and create these kind of epiphanies of Uranus. So there can be a lot of self-forgiveness, or connecting with people in a different way in your life and seeing how people are actually enhancing you rather than detracting. So all that is hopeful. And especially because of Jupiter just going into Cancer last month, it just softens things. And so I know what I'm saying. If you're politically aware, historically aware, it just feels like, really? What does that doesn't make any sense yet? I'm just kind of going to believe that all of these wheels are turning and breakthroughs are happening, and somehow there's a higher consciousness that shows itself maybe when the Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune are all set in their new planets, signs, excuse me. So, yeah, just being hopeful about that. So, but on a short term, Venus is also going into Gemini. So we have Venus conjuncting Uranus. So on a relationship level, that can be opening up to new sorts of people. That could be romantic relationships. If you're in a relationship, it can break through and reconnect. with your partner, better communication, even though Mercury's going retrograde this month, which I'll get to. But it helps you see your partner in a new way, or meet new people, or even if it's friends, because Venus doesn't have to be lovey-dovey, it can be friends and social things. So you can try new stuff and just be more open to things. So that's kind of nice that just as Uranus goes into Gemini, Venus is there too, about like, oh, that's fun. Like new things are fun, or could be not scary to try new things, because Venus is sweet and enjoyable things, and again, linking with that curiosity factor of the sign of Gemini. So let's talk about Mercury going retrograde in Leo. It's going to go retrograde at 15 degrees Leo, let's say the 17th of July. Goes back to 4 degrees of Leo in August. I'm reading losses. About the 11th of August, it goes direct at 4 degrees of Leo. So sometimes you want to say, okay, where is it 4 degrees of Leo before it goes retrograde? And that was like July 1st. So we're sort of in the window. But at the same time that, and people get upset about Mercury in retrograde, is I really feel it's about inner communication. And one of the interesting things about Leo, of course, it's your heart, it's your authentic self. So Mercury can be like thinking, pondering, meditating on your real heart, what you really love. There's something about Leo that does link with Venus, about enjoying yourself, because there's a playful part. We think of the 5th house, which is Leo's house. It's about art. It's also like friendly competition, so it's sports or games and pets and kids, and pets can also be the 6th house when you think of little animals, but the way we think, we just love our little fur babies, it's the 5th house and how they're sweet and fun and playful. So there's this playful element. And so Mercury retrograding in Leo can be getting back in touch with what makes you truly happy, what's fun, what is sort of, one of the things about the 5th house is its recreation, and that it restores your vitality and in a way that's like not frivolous. So it's like art, creative things you do, playful things actually restore your spirit. And the Mercury retrograde can say, hey, I want to put time in my life for this, for art. And especially with Uranus conjuncting Venus, can be like new forms of art. So I thought about trying new things, or new types of exercise, a group exercise, or whatever, new yoga class, or maybe more like fun, unusual things that are more spontaneous than yoga. Maybe if yoga's you got to do this, do that. It's maybe more, again, sportsy or playful, or dance, things like that, dance classes. But that Mercury retrograde says like, when did I lose my fun spirit, or when did I stop playing games or being silly or laughing, or I love something called laughter yoga that's really cool, you could Google about, but it's restoring fun and seeing that, and this is sort of an oxymoron, or a paradox rather, but that there's a sacredness to fun, and that Mercury retrograde can say, I really need to have this as part of my daily spiritual practice, life practice, connect with people, connect with myself, and make that a priority, so that can be part of Mercury retrograde in Leo, especially with the Venus-Uranus conjunction, which is like, oh boy, let's get to this playful spirit that restores us for other bigger picture things that are, more daunting or whatever, more serious. So let me see what else I had, because I think I went on a little long. I think I did say that Saturn and Neptune are going to go retrograde back into Pisces. Both of them in July are turning around. Neptune turned around the 4th of July. Saturn's turning around on the 13th of July. They're still going to be in Aries for a while, but they're turning around. But then as they turn around, or as they're sitting still, the Venus and Uranus are making that sextile, which I talked about, which is just even more about thoughtfulness around the friendships, the arts, the playful. When planets are still like that, it's thoughtfulness. So putting more thoughtfulness through that exploration. So again, I'm overall very hopeful about all the way the planets are over the next number of months. Although it's I did want to say something else about the planets being in Aries in general is thinking for yourself as opposed to when Pisces is too much about surrendering to the like whatever you say, like this big energy that you just go, oh wow, like so Pisces come up in this feeling of awe. Like if you see the Grand Canyon and your mind shuts off and you're like, whoa, like nature is so vast. But the bad part of Pisces can be surrendering yourself and just shutting off your instincts in a way. Whereas Aries is like, my gut doesn't think that's right. And so, again, Saturn and Neptune being in Aries, they will pull back into Pisces, but it's still like, you can't unforget that question mark feeling in your gut or exclamation point in the gut. And so it brings back this more like instinctive, I believe this. And instead of the group think of Pisces, which sometimes can be lovely, like you're at a concert and everyone knows the song and you feel connected and everyone's singing whatever song or something, and it's beautiful, but sometimes it can be not good with group think stuff, obviously. So, anyways, all of those, especially with Uranus making that sextile now, even though everybody's going to go backwards and then go forward again, it's still this moment of like, ooh, exciting connection here and free thinking or breakthroughs and personally to have a lot of spiritual breakthroughs. The other thing I want to say too is if you struggle with meditation, just even a little bit can have some like aha moments that could be later on in a dream at night or later on during the day. But if you struggle, just give that little bit of time because it could be just a little is all you need to kind of go pop in your mind. Okay. So if you want a session with me, you know how to get me 248-583-1663 for call or text or alunamichaels.com. Not as great on the YouTube comments are not as great. My tongue was bumbling over that. Okay, thanks you guys. Hang in there. It's going to be kind of a cool month. And I'll talk to you in August and bye-bye for now.